Welcome to Voodoo Whiskey Gaming, and this is my late review of A Plague Tale Requiem. I play it on the PS5, it's also available on the Xbox Series, PC, and Nintendo Switch. So let's start off with the story, which if you haven't played the first Plague Tale, well, you really should, because there are spoilers coming. Once again, you play as Amicia de Rune. Her and her brother Hugo are traveling with their mother and Lucas, their alchemist friend. They are trying to take him to a city where he can get help from the Order of Alchemists. They're just known as the Order. And, well, unsurprisingly, things don't go smoothly when they stumble upon a village and Amicia and Hugo are attacked. Once again, the macula rears its ugly head, he summons rats, and things just go so very badly. They just have the worst possible luck. Things just continue to go badly. And that's about all I'm going to say because, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but I will say that I actually enjoyed the story. The ending was not entirely what I was expecting initially going into this, but certain beats hit and I knew where they were going when they happened. Which is not to say that it was bad, just there were moments that kind of gave you a heads up and it became a little predictable in those moments, but then they would do something a little different, and overall I gotta say I enjoyed it. Now let's get into the audio, and the first thing I'm going to say is I really love the soundtrack in this game. I think it's phenomenal. I was just really impressed with it. It fits the vibe, it fits the era, it fits whatever's going on at the time. As for the voiceover work, I think the voiceover work is very well done. Once again, I don't have any complaints there. And as for the sound effects, I think there were a few moments where there might have been a missing one here or there, but overall I think the sound effects were very well done. Now let's get into gameplay mechanics and whatnot, and once again, this is an action-adventure game. This one actually has some unique elements compared to the first in that you can stealth around, but you can also try and go more balls-out combat, which I gotta say, in my opinion, that was weak. I mean, you could do it, but it was a struggle because it really didn't feel like the game was meant for that. Or at least not for me, I didn't feel that way. There are a few moments where you're slapped in an arena and I found those to be unreasonably challenging just because it didn't feel like the game was built for that. It honestly kind of reminded me of Deus Ex. How you could build your character for stealth and all of that crap, and then the second you were up against a boss, you were fucked. I mean, it's not that bad, but it is reminiscent. Different shirt, because I'm filming this the next day, because I forgot to say something. And that is that they do give you the ability to pick up knives throughout the game, but the problem is they're single-use knives, and I really didn't find enough of them to make that all-out combat option really work for me. And I'll fully admit that I was probably just missing them, but still, I think if they gave you more, it would have benefited that gameplay style more. But going beyond that, they do something kind of unique where you get new skills based on how you play. If you play super sneaky, you get skills that help out with you being super sneaky. Whereas if you are a much more aggressive player, you will get some abilities that help out with that. Although, honestly, I didn't find a lot of those abilities to be super useful. But there are also abilities like if you're using environmental things to take out your enemies and so on, you get points for that and skills for that. And honestly, I didn't find a lot of those skills to be the most useful things. They also brought back the crafting system where you can upgrade your gear and you craft items that you will use to go forward, you know, things to set things on fire, things to scare off rats and, you know, etc., put out fires. As well as you can upgrade your equipment and gear, and again, I found that to be a bit problematic. Some of them I didn't find as useful as in the previous game. But you do get some new equipment like the crossbow, which I liked that, but again, with some of the crafting elements, it felt a little limited until later in the game. You also get some new companions with new abilities, and you get to use their abilities to help you get around or in combat, and I thought that was a cool thing, considering that they were saddling you with these people, and you're like, well, this is just kind of, they're there, but then you realize they actually have uses, and it can very much affect your playstyle when you have those companions. Now let's get into the controls, and overall I don't really have any complaints with the controls. I think they worked well. I do think the aiming at times was a bit I guess combine that with the lock-on feature, it just didn't always function the way I needed. There were definitely times where I was aiming at one dude and then it would suddenly lock to another and it would screw me. But I guess that's probably more the lock-on mechanic than anything, but yeah. And let's get into the graphics and visuals. And the first thing I'm going to do is say this is a beautiful game. I think the landscapes are fantastic. I think the world that they have built is truly beautiful. I also want to say that I think the characters are really well designed. I really love the character designs throughout this game. I think the evolution of Amicia and Hugo and just all the characters and getting to see how their journeys wear on them, it's well illustrated through the visuals. This is one of those games where they're going for the whole hyper-realism thing and it works. It looks phenomenal. I mean, it may not be the greatest looking game of all time, but it's still a great looking game and everything works well. When they are trying to be bright, colorful, and vibrant, they do a phenomenal job with that. It's truly breathtaking, but when they're trying to be dark and horrible, they land on that too. Pretty much anything they're trying to land on visually, I think they nail it, quite frankly. I think the animation is very well done as well. They do a great job with the whole facial capture thing and just it brings the performances to life. But I am going to have to complain about one thing, and that is I ran into times where I was definitely dropping frames. Not like huge amounts of frames, but enough where it was noticeable that it wasn't running quite smoothly. And I ran into a lot of screen tearing. And the thing is, it's only when it's happening. Like, when it's not happening, it's great and it looks like it's running very smoothly, but then when those things are happening, they happen for quite a while and quite a lot, to the point where it actually gets distracting, unfortunately. Especially the screen tearing. I can only think of a couple of times where the frames were dropped, but as for the screen tearing, there were more than a couple of times. Like, we're talking at least half a dozen or more times. And not just a little bit, we're talking like screen tearing for like 30 seconds straight, 40 seconds straight, something like that. So it was very noticeable when it was happening. And it didn't happen at the times where I really would have expected it to. Like, there are new times where you are running from rats and the sheer number of rats, it's like waves. It's like water down a tunnel, but instead of water, it's rats. So to get into the wrap up, I do think that this is a really good game. I'm very much glad that I played it. Also, New Game Plus mode, always a bonus. I think pretty much any game that has any kind of progression system should have New Game Plus. It's a belief of mine, and it makes me sad when games don't have it, so I'm very glad that this one does. But from the story, to the controls, to the audio, just everything in this game is very, very well done. I don't know if I would give it as high of a score as, you know, others are, but if I did scores, that is. But I will say I fully recommend this game. I have no problems recommending this game. If you haven't seen my review for the first game, I'll put a link in the description below. You can find it on my channel. I'll put a little thing up, because really, you should probably play that first. Okay, so in the comments down below, why don't you tell me, have you played A Plague Tale: Innocence? And as always, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please hit that like button. And if you like what I'm doing in general, share and subscribe. Have a good one.